Welcome to the Let's Drink Bourbon podcast. We're here with Derek Hagan. Now, he is would you call yourself the lead collector of the Thoroughbred Society here?
Probably so.
All right. So, I mean, how do you get started into this? Because we're just looking at a couple of your items here on the table, and I would recommend, and this is going to be in the thumbnail, obviously, of the podcast if you're listening to it just in audio. But how do you start getting your hands on crazy bottles like this?
Well, I started probably in 2000 when I started bartending at Bourbon Festival every year. At the end of the event, they would always say, "Hey, we can't take this product back," and they would just give it to me. So then, like say, I was taking home like 50 bottles a night from home for free, and then I thought it was fun collecting it. Next thing you know, I'm going from distillery to distillery in the morning, waiting in lines, going to liquor stores, collecting bottles that people are looking for. And then I would get multiples of each one, open them, try them out, see if I liked them. If I didn't like them, I would trade for older stuff that I couldn't find, like these. And then, but it would take a lot of bottles to get bottles like this. Like there's sometimes I would trade 20 to 30 bottles just to get one, because these are worth in between $5,000 to $15,000.
Yeah, I'm even watching right now to make sure my wires don't touch this Four Roses box. I mean, just let's go through what we have in front of us just here, and then we'll talk more about your collection. Then I'll let Wes weigh in on this, because Wes, of course, is a member of the club, really loves it here, loves what you've done here, and we'll get into more of that. But what do we have in front of us right now?
Well, we have a 1929 Four Roses rye, still in the box. I've never seen the bottle, still haven't. I'm curious what it looks like. We also have a 1974 Old Rip Van Winkle, a 1906 Gibbs Special Bourbon, and a 1914 Gluckenheimer rye.
And who produced the Gluckenheimer and the Gibbs for people who may not know?
I think it's a distillery up in Pennsylvania. Let's see. Yes. So it says manufactured prior to Pennsylvania rye, the A. Gluckenheimer Distillery.
Which in Pennsylvania, as you know, and the original Michter's, and there's a lot of whiskey that came from Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. A lot of rye whiskey that came from Pennsylvania, so it makes sense. And what was the second one? Was it Gluckenheimer?
Gluckenheimer rye.
That's a product that which is, I'm sorry again.
That's the Gibbs.
Yeah. So the Gibbs is Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, but it's bottled by somebody in San Francisco. So but these companies are long gone, as you know. But I go ahead and tell us some more about So you started trading bottles and how that built, but now it's interesting that you're taking your hobby and you're bringing it to the Thoroughbred Society here, where people are able to consume these things, and people are able to enjoy the fruits of you curating these things. That's kind of cool, isn't it?
That's cool for me too, because when I'm collecting them, I don't get to really try them because they're like one of. But when I bring them here and then somebody opens them, I always get to try them versus them being on my shelf just to look at.
So the trick is you get somebody to pay to open your own collection.
Correct. Yes.
That's pretty brilliant. I think that's where everybody wants to be.
Well, that's what I was going for.
How did you get? Did somebody here at the club go, "Hey, you got a hell of a collection. Bring it here"? How does that happen?
Well, my father-in-law is one of the owners of the club, one of the three, and he was wanting to create one of the better bourbon bars in the city. And I told him, I was like, "Well, you can get stuff from the distributor, but it's not going to compare to having a whole bar full of Dusties." Is what we call older bottles. Just stuff that's hard to find, one-ofs. And it's just like collecting baseball cards. Once you get something that you have a passion for, and you find there's a story behind it too, behind every bottle, how you got it, where you waited in line, what you traded for it. There might be an instance where when it mails to you, it might leak, and then you have a bottle that's like, oh man, I just traded 30 bottles, and then I get a bottle mailed to me, and it's like half empty. So you're like crushed that way. And then you just hope the guy on the secondary market will honor his, shipment and then replace it or something like that. But it's just a hobby to me. It's fun finding bottles that I can't ever find on a shelf in the liquor store. So it just became a passion. I love camping out at one point. Now it's at a point I don't really have to camp out anymore. I get people calling me saying, hey, I got this bottle. Are you interested? And I tell them, yeah, I'm interested. How much you want? And then they'll tell me, and I try to trade first. If I can't trade, then I'll buy it from them.
By the way, I love how much noisier this place could get. At this point, we've got construction outside.
Yes.
We've got fans in here. I mean, come on.
Well, we're in the middle of, we're in the Thoroughbred Society, Louisville Thoroughbred Society, which is an amazing club in downtown Louisville. So there's a lot going on here. We're in the cigar room now, which I'm not a cigar smoker, but it's my understanding that you have an amazing collection of cigars as well. But yeah, it's real life. We're hearing trucks and fans and everything else.
Not very busy midday at the Thoroughbred Society. It is, but it's not like quite the night.
Not in the cigar room.
Yeah.
It's usually in the main club where it's more people for lunch during the day. Now at nighttime, this place will be packed. We have over 300 different types of cigars, so it's like a one-stop shop. You can gamble here, smoke cigars here, have an outside patio, beautiful day out, come enjoy some cocktails. There's great food here. So if you've never been here, come.
How can it be? You've got good food. How can it be any better? Great food. You can drink. You can gamble. You can socialize. There's a roulette wheel in the other room, right? You can bet on the horses. What else do you need? I mean, really, all the life's needs are
a golf simulator.
Oh, there you go. Okay, all right. That's
keep people here for 4 or 5 hours, drinking and eating.
It's all about keeping them here, man.
Yep.
Keeping them here. So taking a look back at some of the old Dusties, which I love that. I love that phrase. Kentucky has a law now which allows retailers to purchase some of these bottles, which is a relatively new law. It's just happened in the last couple of years, which I think is great. Because in the past there was no legal way to work these bottles through the system,
right,
to where you could sell them here at retail.
Right.
So I think that's a great. This is a little different situation because you're collecting them, but the fact that you can get these in bars now is a great development.
Not for me.
Well,
I've spent so much money.
It's making you go broke.
Yeah.
But you go to Jack Rose, for example, in DC, and see all these incredible whiskeys, and we're in the heart of bourbon country, and you couldn't legally go purchase at a bar one of these products.
Right. It's crazy. I just love trying bourbons that were made from different mash bills, different yeasts, different barrels from different trees. The trees they used back then were probably, the average year is probably 100 years old. And now you're looking at barrels made out of trees that are like 5 to 10 years old. So there's definitely different tastes. I didn't even think about that.
Well, it's a really good discussion. It's a discussion we could have for probably hours. But tasting these whiskeys, we're not sure what they tasted like 100 years ago.
Right.
We know what they taste like now. We know that there are some changes, even though whiskey doesn't age outside of a barrel. You get oxidation. You get other things depending on the seal of the bottle. So there can be changes. So we really wouldn't know unless something was hermetically sealed for 100 years.
Right.
Exactly what that tasted like when it was made. Now it gives us a little bit of an idea, but it's fun speculating on how it really did taste back then. It's different. There's no doubt about it. In some cases, I think it's better whiskey than we see sometimes made now. Lower barrel entry proofs, other production methods that are a little not automated. Some of the things that we in the industry cut corners on now, you couldn't cut corners on back then.
Right.
What is your most unique pour that you've made for yourself, or your favorite bottle? I want to go through all of these things with you. Like, I want to know the most expensive you've ever cracked, what you've charged for it. I want to know the craziest flavor that you've pulled out of any one of these, because you have an experience that, and I bet Wes is probably in the same ballpark as you, but for me as a consumer, I don't have access to this stuff. Wes, you've been in it your entire life, so all 28 years of your life, you've been able to try things. Give me the rundown, and give our listeners the rundown of, like, all of those different things.
I would say some of the unique flavors that I've tried in a lot of the older bottles would be, I'd always get a black licorice note in a lot of the older bottles. For some reason, I don't know if it's the medicinal part of it from back then when they had prescriptions on the bottles. I don't know what it is. I just get that licorice taste in a lot of them, but it changes. I mean, there's so many different types. I do know that they're easier to drink than nowadays. Everybody wants that high proof, barrel proof stuff. So it's hard to find something that has a high proof. Like my dream bottle is the very, very rare O. Fitzgerald Black Hawk bottle, 121 proof. They're probably 40 to 60,000. They're hard to find. If I had one, I'm sure we would charge probably $500 to $600 a half ounce pour, something like that. Now here, I think our most expensive pour would be the OPC, and it's 300 a half ounce. Would be our most expensive, I would say, would be here. Now, my favorite that I've had recently would probably be, that's just so hard.
There's so many.
There's so many.
Yep.
And then
Give me a top three.
Top three. Oh, wow.
While you're thinking of that, I know
I'll let y'all
everybody's
think.
Everybody loses their mind for Pappy Van Winkle. What's a half ounce of that go for?
This one right here, I think it's 160 a half ounce.
That's not unreasonable for what that is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really it's
I mean, that bottle cost us $8,500. So, I mean, it's expensive. So you got to make your money back. It's not like we're doubling our price here. We're still trying to keep it down, price down where everybody can afford it.
When you look at it, people aren't going to be able to find these. The work that you put into this, now it may seem simple to you, but it's been so many years of expertise and trading and going through it that, like, you know, you're like the, I don't know. Like
I've only seen 3 in my life.
Well, there you go. So, like, so for $160 for a half ounce of that, somebody comes here to the club, or they're brought by a member of the club, obviously. That's a deal.
Oh, absolutely. It's a no-brainer.
So back to those top three.
Top three, man.
See, I delayed for you there.
Yeah, now.
But you asked a different question, so
No,
now
I would
we'll just
say
sit here and
I would say one of my recent pours I liked was the Michter Celebration Batch 1. That's a really good one. I've had a Black Maple Hill 23-year
one of
rye.
the original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those were fantastic. I mean, it's 98 proof, but it's still crazy flavors in it.
And Angel's Envy.
And Angel's
Yeah,
Envy
straight.
Unicorn blend.
I know.
I need one of those.
So
are fantastic.
So Derek, tell our listeners and our viewers about what you asked me about it, a particular Angel's Envy bottle. Can you explain why you asked about that bottle and where you heard about it?
Well, just the rarity. You know, everybody wants it, and you can't find it anymore. So if you can find it, you might as well get your hands on it, just because you want it on your bar.
Well, that's an Angel's Envy rye release we did called the Unicorn Blend, and we did a very small release, just a couple barrels. We did it for a private individual, and when we released it, though, I didn't think anybody would know about it. I did it for a friend, and I'm like, no big deal. Nobody's going to call me and bug me because nobody will know I did it. Well, within 24 hours of it going out,
Phone's blowing up.
everybody's calling asking for the Unicorn Blend, and now to this day it has literally become a unicorn, which is
It's perfect name for
what you write, which is what you as a producer, I love hearing that. I don't think you set out to accomplish that. Like we didn't set out and say, well, we're going to create a blend, even though we didn't call it Unicorn Blend, but not in a way that was going to become that sought after. We didn't know. It just happens to be that way. I venture to say that the folks that distilled and bottled this stuff 100 plus years ago, they weren't thinking that we were going to be drinking this 100 years from now. Just like the Angel's Envy we're making today, you know, our cask strength, which is going for $400 a pour.
Yeah.
What's that going to be like 100 years from now? It's
never know.
Fun to be able to, you know, to look at it in those terms, and that's history in the bottle. This is World War I whiskey to a certain extent, or before that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on in this world when that was made. And,
yeah.
But it's interesting, though, that you mentioned, and maybe you were mentioning on purpose, more modern whiskeys, that the three you mentioned are modern whiskeys. Did you do that on purpose, or those are just
That's what I had recently.
Okay, recently. Okay, because I thought it was really cool that your top three didn't include any of those. but you specifically kind of segregated those out. So
I'm more of a high proof guy,
okay,
and I like the mouthfeel.
got it.
Something that has an oily mouthfeel, good finish. A lot of things nowadays, it's all MGP. I feel like it's made by them. So everything I'm trying is tasting the same.
Right.
You know, everybody's throwing a label on a bottle to make it sound like it's their whiskey or their bourbon, and they didn't even make it. But it's the trend now, so.
Well, but consumers are a lot more savvy to that now than 10 years ago. You know,
Right.
the provenance is a lot more important. You can take whiskey that someone else has produced for you and do things to it in blending and finishing that can make it special and make it unique. But I'm kind of skeptical of someone who takes something somebody else makes and doesn't do anything with it,
Right.
and puts their name on
Besides
it
making money off of it.
and pretends that somebody else didn't make it for them.
Right.
That's where first of all, that's where you get in trouble as a business. Second of all, our bourbon consumer is much more astute to the provenance, the origin, all those things with bourbon now that wasn't like this several years ago, which I think is great. I love it. I love transparency. I think as a producer, it's real important to have that transparency. I mean, I know you know a ton about whiskey. I'm sure you know a ton about Angel's Envy as well. So, but it's got to be real.
Oh, absolutely. Now, like I was saying, a lot of people's taking MGP, the 4 to 6 year bourbon, but the older MGP that Willett sourced from, they have a lot of great barrels.
They do.
You know, I mean, anywhere's hit or miss. It's all, to me, location in the rick house.
Right.
You know, so me, I like the ones that are on top floor by the windows.
Okay.
Some people might like that musky taste that's down there on the first floor.
Right.
You know, a lower proof.
Well, MGP kind of gets not really a raw deal sometimes, but there's a lot of MGP whiskey out there. And MGP, by the way, is a distiller in Indiana that was an old Seagram's plant.
Serums.
It's a huge industrial facility. They've been making whiskey for I don't know how many years, but probably 75 years there or more. But it's very good whiskey. It's some of the best rye on the planet, I believe. And, you know, so it kind of gets a raw deal, but it also comes back to transparency and, you know, and that's okay. Let's say, hey, I sourced these 10 barrels from MGP and I sourced these 10 barrels from over here and I got these from here and I blended them together into like barrel bourbon.
Yeah.
I blended them into something special. To me, that's even more special. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. How do you take a piece from this puzzle, put it together in a way that looks like a masterpiece? And that's what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Well, is it safe to assume then that if a bottle says distilled in Indiana, it's MGP?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I would say so. I'm not even familiar with any other distilleries in Indiana. I'm sure there are. Well, no, there's one in Brown County. I can't think the name of it.
My friend's got one in his garage.
Well, that and out in the backyard. Yeah, all those places. But you're right. If it's from Lawrenceburg, Indiana, it's going to be MGP.
Which doesn't mean it's not bad at all. Like you said,
No.
they produced. I've had some wild stuff that's MGP juice. I mean, we're at some point. I don't know how we're going to release these podcasts, but we got to play around in a whole room full of MGP juice.
We did. It
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. So what do you see as far as collecting and what are your next steps? I mean, if you could go out and do you have to target list or do you just kind of, I mean, certainly you have to take things as you find them, but are you on a quest for anything in particular right now that you think that?
Well, I always collect the stuff I collect sets. So I have like the whole birthday bourbon vertical. I have all the E.H. Taylors. Pretty much any of the rare bourbons that people are looking for that come out one time a year are the ones that I'm looking for. A lot of Buffalo Trace products, but they're getting harder and harder to find.
Right.
I used to be able to find Blanton's and stuff every day. Pappy, when I was in college, used to be on the shelf. Now you have to wait in line or know somebody and pay top dollar just to get them.
And mostly it's knowing somebody.
Yes, knowing
Right,
somebody.
right.
And then how good you treat those people. Like
Right.
I give tickets to Louisville games, the basketball, football games. I bring them lunch all the time. You know,
It's a full-time job.
Yeah, I try to cater to
Well.
them because I figured if they're helping me out, give them something I want. Especially if I can get two of any of these bourbons. I like to drink one and then hold one for my collection. Now, if I get three, it's even better.
Now, the birthday bourbons, have you opened the birthday bourbon, all of them yet? Or
I've had pretty much all of them.
Right.
Besides the ones that were harder for me to get, but most of them I paid like $49.99 for them. Now they're about $150 a piece.
So we'll have to get together sometime, and if they're opened, my dad did the first maybe 4 or so.
Those are the best
bourbons.
ones.
I agree. It's been a long time since I've had them, and he did the first 3, I think, Woodford's Masters collection.
Those are good too.
So those are ones that I would like to go back and revisit now that I haven't seen in a long time. And actually, I'd like to get my hands on them to buy them. Anything that Dad had his hand in, I'm trying to get a hold of them.
And what's crazy now, most of those bottles that you mentioned are like $3,000.
Wow.
And so they're hard to get. And if you want to spend $3,000, especially the 2002, it's totally different in color versus all of them. When I line them up, you can tell like that one's really good.
Interesting.
Well, let me ask you this, because you have a very unique expertise, because you've had so many different bourbons and you have a palate for them, you understand them. Say you're a consumer that can't find Pappy Van Winkle, and because I think people have lost their minds for it. It's
Absolutely.
a good juice, but people have lost their minds for it. What is comparable in the market for somebody who wants to try a Pappy Van Winkle, that wants to get something affordable, doesn't want to go break the bank, doesn't want to have to wait?
But before you answer that, though, let's put this in perspective, though.
Yeah.
Why are you making Pappy the benchmark?
That's all you hear about.
Right, I
That is literally
understand.
the
And
one.
that's the first hurdle I think you have to get over is
Yes.
that great product, great family, dear friends, love them to death. But if that's your benchmark, to me, look, if that's the only benchmark you have for bourbon, that means you don't know shit about bourbon.
That's true.
And
I don't even like Pappy. I like one of them. I like the
younger
rye,
stuff.
and I like the 15.
Right, same here, and that's okay. And it's all relative. I think it's amazing that if you can get $3,000 or $4,000 for a bottle as a distiller, God bless you. Good for them. And it's all relative to if it's worth that to you and you have the money to buy it, buy it.
But the old Rip was a $30 bottle. So
go.
it should
Yep.
taste like a $30 bottle, not a $1,000 bottle.
I agree. So I didn't mean to derail your
No.
question. I think it's a good discussion to have.
I'm not a basic bourbon buyer. You know that, Wes.
Right.
Now, we've had a
No.
couple events where some events that we've had in the past where we do a tasting and we grab like 10 bottles that you can regularly find on the shelf for under $50. And one of the bottles that always wins in these tastings is the Old Granddad Bottled in Bond.
Yep.
And it's a $20 bottle. I mean, the 114 sells good. But it's not saying that I'm like pushing that, but for some reason, a lot of people like the taste of those.
And people don't associate it with they go with price. They go with very basic things, price and popularity.
Yeah,
And
if
they
you
don't
told
think
them
to
the
go-
price of that, they're not going to be like, well, I'm not going to show this off to my friend because it's $20.
Yeah.
Most people, it's a show off thing.
Well, you know what I do, and once I think we've talked about this, I have empty bottles of Pappy that I fill up with other stuff, and I put them on the table for parties, and people don't know the difference. It's fine.
Yeah,
He
it's
sells
fine.
them online.
Yeah.
Everything like that.
I have a waxer. I reseal them now.
Yeah, don't say that. You might get us in trouble.
But no, it's interesting. Like when you look at that kind of stuff, people, they really, if they're new to bourbon, they think it costs a lot of money to get to something good, and it doesn't.
Well, I always tell people, try everything you buy. Don't just assume, especially the flippers, don't buy it and flip it just to make money, because it might be some of the best bourbon you've ever had. You just never tasted it because you want to make the money versus trying it.
Yeah.
I mean, that new Woodford Double Oak, it's fantastic. I mean, it's bad that I only get one bottle and it's a pint for the whole year, but it's fantastic. And one group of people can drink that whole bottle in one night. So for a club to try to find something like that, now it's great for marketing for them. Good for them. They're making $50 off a pint. But if you want to sell more, they should at least make a 750 ml out of it. Just to give the consumers more to drink.
Yeah. No, my favorite recent that I could only get my hands on one bottle of, and I drank with friends in one night, was the Bardstown Destilar.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it tastes like an old fashioned without the sugar in it. And we went through that bottle, and I was like, "Oh, let me go get another one." Nope, that's not happening.
Yep.
But that's the way bourbon should be treated. You enjoy it with friends.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's fun to have you're in history land here. This is a
Yeah.
whole nother world. But for those hard to find bottles, enjoy them. I think that's the big thing.
And with friends, family.
That's the message. That's a consistent messaging with spirits that unfortunately some people miss out on, or overconsumption, and then you're not enjoying anything. There's that sweet spot there, and that responsible consumption. But I mean, this has been fun. I mean, I'm glad you brought out all these. And I know when we started talking about this, you're like, what are we going to talk about? But I really wanted to tap into your knowledge of this, of collecting. Almost said the secondary. I don't look at it like that. I look at this as collecting.
Well, I'm collecting. Some people secondary, they're flippers.
Yeah, exactly. And then secondary is kind of a broad generalization, but I would agree that that's what you're talking about. You're talking about people that buy stuff. They've turned it into a business, which is fine with me. But I hate it when I see things priced out of the market to where regular guy with a regular job can't afford it.
It's not fun anymore.
Yep.
Exactly.
And that's what's kind of fun about the Thoroughbred Society is that you guys, I mean, I'm telling you, the prices you have on these are beyond reasonable for something that, like, for all of your work. I don't know how I would be able to price my work. You this is your life's work, really, here. Like, and I'm sure you've done other things, but this is, like, amazing that you're sharing your collection with people and they can have access to it for a reasonable value. There's nothing like this.
Yeah, I don't want to jack up the prices. I've heard the other day, like, somebody down the road had King of Kentucky, one of my favorite releases of the year, every year. But somebody was selling it for like $200 a half-ounce pour. I sell it for $30 and $40.
Yeah.
But it's also, I keep it cheap. I make the prices here. I keep it cheap because I want to try it too, though.
Well, and that's nice too, as a member here, that I know that, I mean, we all have to make money. The club has to make money, but you're not doing it in a way that's taking advantage of people's willingness to pay those ridiculous prices. It's a fair price. We get to enjoy it together, and it's just more value added for the club as well. That's what's one of the great things about being a member here. So, well, I appreciate the time to talk today. I really do. This has been a lot of fun. And Tim, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I was just going to say, Derek, look, I'm a collector, but you're really a historian. You're like the next level of collecting. There's a difference. I have 600 bottles of things that I like, and I hoard the stuff that I'm afraid I won't get again. And it's
I do the same.
To drink it for myself. Like, I want to die and still have a pour of certain bottles of things. And so that's why
put it in your casket with you.
You taking it with you?
Yeah, I'll also be voting then too, Wes. So I want
of course. It's the American way.
I want to be able to drink, and I even found one of the bottles that I love, around town. I paid a little bit more for it just to have it and I never want to flip it. Like, I am a true, like, I just want to have it to drink, and I want to have those options, and it's so much fun. You're such a different level because you took that and were like, hold on, I've always wanted to try something from the 70s. Let's do that. Then you got stuff in the early 1900s. It's another level, and it's so amazing that really the Thoroughbred Society isn't just a place to hang out and drink. It's your museum. It's your personal museum. That's what you turned it into, and it's something that you share with other people. Incredible, and I'm so glad you got to sit down with us today.
It's just fun just telling stories, too.
Derek Hagan, bourbon historian.
You should really call yourself that.
That's great. We'll get some business cards printed up.
Instead of the cigar guy. That's what that's the
cigar.
name they give me here.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
And thanks if you're watching or listening. My name's Wes Henderson. This is
Tim Young.
And
Derek Hagan.
Yeah.
There you go.
Let's Drink Bourbon podcast. Follow, like, subscribe, all the things. LetsDrinkBourbon.com. Let's Drink Bourbon on Instagram. KY Bourbon Maker all over the place. Bourbon on Getter. All of the things. Follow us everywhere. Thanks for watching today, and thank you, sir.
Cheers.
Cheers.